run away from all the people I'm facing with, but they just keep coming, so I just keep running, I'm racing. Maybe I should look up to my Father and make some changes, erasing sort of meeting so that we can face it.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Israelite Nation Friday Night Bible Studies. I am Teacher Anthony, joined alongside
Ezra Blair.
And we are very excited tonight to really bring you guys something very special, something that's kind of we've been talking about, I say, for a while now, right?
Yeah.
Something that's not really, it's not so much really talked about in society or even amongst brethren sometimes, but it's something that's so key and very important to us, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that is the role of Israelite man.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm about to contain myself, man, 'cause this is something that's so, it's so special to me, right, and unique to me, right, because we're brought up in a world where, you know, what is the role of men?
Yeah, what is the role?
Right? I mean, what is a man for that matter? But
Yeah.
we don't want to go into that. But what is the role of men, let alone the role of Israelite men, right?
Yeah.
So much of society today, we kind of see that a lot of times we talk about the role of men is always kind of negated to
the financial guy, the financial supporter. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that, right? If the only thing that you were getting from a man, right, or, you know, a father, or, you know, is financial support, is that enough?
It's not enough. No.
You know?
There's more to it.
Exactly, right? It's so much more to just being a man, right? Let alone, again, the role of Israelite man. And how does it play a part in our lives as well as in the nation, right? Mm-hmm. But first, we got to kind of go through always have to go backwards before we come forward, right?
Right.
How do we even get to a point to where society kind of looks at it like just strictly financial help?
I think it kind of boils down to, I think maybe understanding of self, I think a bit, even as a man. I think like as a man, you kind of need to understand your value and not just based off of dollars, because that's not how we equate value. And I think even as you like read the scriptures and as we even just like throughout time, like it takes a lot more to be a man, and it takes a lot of other attributes. I think we're probably gonna go through today as far as some of the attributes that men that we would be considered good men and good role models as good Israelite strong men, kind of the stuff they go through. And kind of the things that build up their character.
Absolutely.
To be the man that they are.
Absolutely, right. You know, I know something that we always, I say amongst friends and, you know, when we kind of talking about society and different things, like, man, we remember that we missed the time when men were men, right? A lot of times we say that, right? And I think sometimes we say it almost to like, it's like malcontent sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. We say the time, but because even going back, let's say about 50 to 60 years ago, when men were men, it's like, but I remember my grandfather, he wasn't the nicest person in the world. Like he was pretty mean, right? And I understand my grandfather was born in the 20s. So, you know, from Chula, Mississippi, right? Man, population like 30, right? And you can imagine what they had to deal with at that time period. So even for his children to come along and with me even being his grandchild to come along, right? All I saw was just like man, this guy here, I just want to be away from him. Mm-hmm. So again, right, it takes that balance, because we do miss the time, right, when guys necessarily, I guess, stood up, right?
Yeah.
Really what we say is we missed the time when guys had no emotion.
Did not show their emotion.
Right? And but again, we know that's not good either.
Yeah, that's not good either. I think so, and especially talk about like today's age, it's a little bit harder to gauge at it, because back then, you know, you were dealing with, okay, you got to go out into, all the way back then, talk about back then, like in the script, you got to go out to the field, you got to kill the thing. So like it was there was a lot more typical like man traits. I think, and even just throughout time, not even too long ago, as you said, even 1920s, there's a lot more animosity in your life you have to face. But I still think, though, in today's age, we can't let the comfort of America or today's technologies, we can't let that comfort take away from the pride that comes about in a man when a man is acting as a man. If that makes sense. I got you. Exactly what I mean.
I got you. I know exactly where you.
And I think if you are a man, then you kind of understand kind of what it feels like when you feel you are a man, you know? And I think there's a certain pride that comes with that. And it allows you to be successful. Like, it allows you to be the best version of yourself, to feel confident, and to like go out into the world and strive to conquer. And so it may not be in today's age going out and like killing a lion. It may not look like that now, but there's other ways that it can look like.
Absolutely.
Whether it's at work or you at school or socially, just whatever. But you kind of go out there and you kind of have this idea of being like, you go out there with the positive mindset, like, I'm going to be successful and I'm going to do what I have to do to go where I need to go.
100%, 100%, right? It really it brings about the mindset of almost like no excuses.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna get it done, right?
Exactly.
And so and again, right? So we're gonna dive into it, right? We're gonna have a real hard discussion and conversation, right? Because this is not an easy topic, right? This is kind of like therapy, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to it. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So right now, well, if you like what you're hearing, if you want to know more, click the link in the description box, right? Mm-hmm. Come and join us, right? So we can further these discussions, right? So we can honestly bring together that family, so we can really sit down and hone in on what it means to be an Israelite, especially Israelite man or woman, right? Mm-hmm. So we definitely want to leave that out, right? But for the purpose of this conversation, right?
Right.
the role of Israelite men, right? Yeah. But you mentioned something that was so poignant and key when you talked about back then, the sense of pride, right? The sense of accomplishment that may have came with killing a lion, right? Killing an animal, right? But I like to think of this sense of accomplishment that came when the elders took pride in you. That sense of a pride, that sense of accomplishment, right? Because I know as a child, right, even today, you still look forward to it. You still kind of look forward to maybe your parents, right, or whether it's friends or somebody, right, having that sense of pride and accomplishments, talking about you,
speaking highly of you. Yeah,
exactly, right. You being an astute young man, right? So I'm sure you can relate to that same mindset sometimes, right?
It's true, because I think so. Like we're all like when we're kids, you strive for, I guess, quote unquote approval from your elders and your peers, and as you get older, I think different voices are louder at different stages of your life. But regardless, especially I think as a man, as you get older, you start to understand that the approval that you kind of seek, or the idea of accomplishment, it becomes harder and harder as you get older. People they stop applauding the small things, right? And so but I think in a way it can be very motivating though, because I think some people, and it depends, and I think as a man you kind of have to take the jump to use it as motivation, because I think you can fall into when as you get older and you realize that the approval is much harder to attain than it used to be as a kid, right? As a kid, you dance around, you play around, and they go applaud. But life gets hard and life hits you, but I think as it's kind of there's a step and there's a moment where as a man you kind of have to make the decision to be motivated instead of being, I'm trying to think of what's the opposing word, kind of down in the dumps about it. And then because you don't want to ever accept the role of like, oh, I guess I'm not, you know what I mean? You don't want to accept that role, but you want to use that as motivation for you to work even harder, because as we know as Israelite men, like a big part of like what makes a man and why men have this natural wanting, and society too, to provide, it's because of that. It's because of the hard work that you need to put in order to
100%.
become the man that you need to be.
100%, 100%. Especially when we're talking about so one of the differences though when we talk about Israelite men is that, especially when we're going back to the time, let's say about somebody like King David, King Solomon, even King Saul to a certain degree, right? Yeah. Is that not so much having the mixing of another culture, right? Whereas we're under this, American culture and their role of what they determine to be, a man, versus, again, right, Israelite role, right? Yeah. And you can't do any mixing, right? That's when it becomes very dangerous, right? And it
Yeah.
becomes very toxic, right? And in some instances, right, I know what I've seen, even today to some degree, right? And again, we know this is gonna be a hard conversation, right? So is that even today, right, you see more and more of daughters being raised and young boys being loved, right? Really meaning that we're not raising our sons anymore. We're not really pouring it out into them so they can grow up and kind of to push forward, to push for more, rather than just always just kind of just giving up somewhat, right?
Yeah.
To even grow up to get to a point to even be a man, let alone an Israelite man, right?
Yeah.
Because of the responsibility it carries, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things again, right? Which is why our culture is so important to us, right? Because it really outlines and it really shows that you can't you can't really get lost, right? Well, what a downfall comes in again is when, and unfortunately, right, we do have to mix with this culture because by virtue of living here,
Natural.
it's difficult, right? It's difficult. A lot of times, I know being a parent myself, right? When I go and I have to deal with things, especially going to my daughter's school, right? It's almost like hey, can we talk to the mother, or can we talk to a lot of times, because again, it's been there's so much disconnect now that it's almost like we don't know how to handle and deal with certain situations, especially when it comes to stepping up in that role, as you say, right?
Yeah.
The men being men.
Yeah, men being men. I think. I mean, part of it we also know. I think is definitely institutionalized as well in our culture and our society, because even part of the even in the era of what's it called, Black fatherhood kind of declining and since since slavery times, we know that like a lot of that is also can be like that's also part of the structure of how this could negatively affect the Black community. You know what I'm saying? So all those things I feel like kind of connect as well, as far as you saying absence of fatherhood leading to Black community struggling as well. Like those things are all in combination.
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
Now you get into the thick of it, right?
Yeah.
Man, that's a good point, man.
Yeah.
So the absence of fathers being in the home, right? Mm-hmm. So you're growing up. So
now there really is no man to teach that son how to be a man. So he doesn't have the guidance, and then he also sees it in neighboring men as well. So if it plagues the whole community, then you're living in a community with no role models.
Oh man!
And so that you may not see the effect right now, but you'll see it in 20 years, and then you'll see it in 40 years with their kids, and it'll pass on as long as that culture kind of stays, if that makes sense.
Oh man, 100%. Drop some fire in the chat for this young Israelite man right here teaching about the role of Israelite men, right? And let's kind of dive into it, right? Because we kind of want to again, right, go backwards to come forward, right? Because we know where we kind of know where we've been. Mm-hmm. How do we get to the point now, right? Being Israelite men, right? How do we teach ourselves in this, right? How do we establish ourselves as Israelite men, right? To want to aspire to be someone like King David, right? Or even Daniel or even Moses, right? So many great positive examples of Israelite men, right? Mm-hmm. So, but first things first, right? All Israelite men. I really want to look at the camera, right, and really say this. All Israelite men must be circumcised.
Oh yeah,
there is nothing that says otherwise. If you're not circumcised, you're not an Israelite man, right? There's nothing so much so. I did kind of want to just go through some scripture, right? Mm-hmm. Again, and we kind of familiar with what the God of Israel instructed Abraham to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
the covenant.
Exactly. Yeah. But you even have people out here who truly believe, right, because of circumcision of the heart, that circumcision is no longer a requirement.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can go through and read the word for word what the covenant tells us, but we know that circumcision is it's the sealing of the covenant. It's the signature of yes, we have this agreement with each other between us as His children, Him as our God. So yeah, circumcision is vital.
Exactly. Again, right? It's one of those things. It's just like when people say it, like Are you serious?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
but I just want to go. Let's go to Luke 2 real quick. Luke chapter 2. I forgot my glasses. I might need you to be my reader.
I got it. Luke 2.
Luke chapter 2. We gonna start at verse 8.
Luke chapter 2, verse 8.
Yeah.
Here we are. Verse 8, okay. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And, lo, the angels of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were so afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you was born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you, ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said one to another, Let us now go even unto Bethlehem, and see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord hath made known unto us. And they came with haste, and found Mary and Joseph, and the babe lying in a manger. And when they had seen it, they made known abroad the saying which was told them concerning this child. And all they that had heard it wondered at those things which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told unto them. And when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcising of the child, his name was called Jesus, which was so named of the angel before he was conceived in the womb. And when the days of her purification according to the law of Moses were accomplished, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As was written in the law of the Lord, every male that openeth the womb shall be called holy to the Lord.
All right, stop right there. Oh, man.
Yeah,
I love the scriptures. Again, right? Our history book, right?
Mm-hmm.
But verse 21.
Yeah.
And when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcision of the child, the name was called.
Mm-hmm.
Again, right?
Yeah, it's the culture.
It goes back to the beginning.
Yeah.
It goes back to the beginning. So if Jesus is circumcised and somebody's telling you today that you don't have to be circumcised, run away. Run away. Just run away completely.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense, right? But again, right, that's why we're thankful for our Elder Shadrach and the Supreme Council for the wisdom in which the scriptures are applied to our lives. Mm-hmm. It is something that is so instrumental to us, right? Again, right, because so many people can read this and still decide that, hey, I don't want to be circumcised.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
That's the only reason, right? But again, we see it right there, black and white.
Clear as day. Clear as day. Yeah.
It is one of those things that is so critical, right? Mm-hmm. But again, so going back to another component of the role of Israelite men and how we should be, right? And how we should carry ourselves and really how we should really conduct ourselves as representation of the living God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really how I see. I mean, really, when you think about Israelite men and what our roles are.
Yeah.
Right? We talked in the beginning, right, how today's society sees it as, being a supporter, right? Being financially able to support your family. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You think that's cheap?
Yeah.
That's like, I don't want that. That's, who cares about that, right?
Yeah.
Especially in this corrupt world. How does that separate you, right? How does that make you righteous?
Yeah.
How does that help you live a righteous life? And to accomplish the things that the God of Israel has set forth for us. It's one of those things that really just, oh man, I get so passionate about the role of Israelite man, because again, it's one of those topics that is so it's so near and dear to your heart. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those.
It's important too that we kind of understand the role of Israelite men, because when we read the scriptures, we see how all the roles of these Israelite men are like they built their families. Like they are the reason why we are who we are right now today. And a lot of the people, like in the Bible, whether you go through like David's and your Solomon's, and you have Abraham and Jacob and Joseph, like these are men who they went through their trials and they went through their tribulations, but because of their characteristics and because of their attributes and their love for this nation and kind of putting this nation kind of in their heart, they now can use their strengths as men, but they use their strengths to embody and help the nation, and to build the nation.
That's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned it. I'm glad because this brings something else up that's pretty controversial, but that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to tackle the role of Israelite men, multiple wives. Multiple wives.
Yes.
This is something that is very controversial, especially it's funny, right? Because you meet people, right? And you say, hey, I'm an Israelite. Yeah, I believe in having more than one wife, and that ain't for me, and I ain't doing that. You like, whoa, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. That is not a component of today, right? Yeah. Now, and the funny thing about when we talk about having multiple wives or that situation, right? That's not something that Israel came up with. That was just the culture of the day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's just what happened and things did, and the way they did it, right?
Yeah.
Even so much so when we read scriptures and we read about Israelite men having multiple wives, these weren't your average everyday Israelite men. These were some very prominent men in Israel that had multiple wives, right? Mm-hmm. You're not having multiple wives and to satisfy some own personal desire, right? Yeah. They're not living under the same household. They probably not even living in the same city.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was more so about providing and like being able to be that provider. And so the concept doesn't make sense if you can't provide for yourself. The concept doesn't make sense. And if you can barely provide for one more, the concept doesn't make sense.
Oh my goodness!
Right. So the concept applied back then because of providing, and as you said, that was also the culture of the time.
The structure of Israel, we were building. So the structure you want to build, right? You want to build as quickly as you can, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, but think about it now. Even going back, what we said, the bare minimum is to take care of your family.
Right.
If you're struggling to take care of one family, hold on, let me stop. If you're struggling to take care of yourself. Right. Let alone a wife that you want to add to that.
Makes no sense. Makes no sense to you. Yeah.
It makes zero sense.
Yeah.
There's no stability there. That's only thing you're going to create is chaos among yourself. And we know, right? And we see what happens when you bring in multiple women, when there's not stable, even when it is stable, right? Again, we're familiar with King Solomon. Yeah. And what that situation, how that situation turned out to be.
Yeah, and I think it's also very important to note that, like, as a man, it's also you also have to be careful with the women you deal with and interact with, because those same women can also be your downfall, and we see that multiple times in the scripture as well. Women kind of possibly being the downfall of a great man.
Oh man, you hit something there. You hit something. I told you it's gonna be a little controversial today, but we gonna talk about it.
I don't think that's controversial. I mean, it's just it's in there.
But you know what? It's one of those conversations that's not really had, right? A lot of times we're very reactive.
Yeah.
Right. We're very much so. Like, I told you not to do this. You shouldn't have did that. You shouldn't have did that. Mm-hmm. And we need to have those proactive conversations especially to our young Israelite men, as far as being dating, as far as what they're attracted to, right?
Yeah.
I personally believe that a lot of attraction is manufactured. It may not be so much what you want, right? But because this is what the world gears toward, the world pushes for you to like, you kind of go along with it without really saying, is this really what I want? Is this really what I want to do?
Yeah. And I think having strength in who you are and what you truly want, it actually, I think, is a big factor in when you go out there as far as dating or interacting with women. Like, I think that's a big key in you being able to eliminate the ones that like clearly just aren't on the right mindset or not on the same page as you. And I think it kind of comes from within in order to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But then also at the same time, we also see examples in the scripture, not just of women being your downfall, but I think also women can also be actually someone who can really help you and really guide you in the right direction as well. So
exactly.
Having the right woman around is also very vital as a man too. And we see examples of that. And there are many like stories in the scripture and many women who, if they didn't take action, like there would be huge consequences of us as a nation.
The ramifications. Right. I mean, two immediately come to mind is Rahab and Ruth.
Yeah, yeah.
And we know the connection, especially what that means to Israel. Yeah. But just thinking about their actions, they kind of help uphold Israelite men. Yeah. Right. Again.
Yeah. Also thinking about someone like Hannah, who, through her struggles, we have Samuel, and now and then Samuel was the one to anoint our first king, and so there's a lot of those things have to do with that. So I don't think it's never about purely right and wrong, or like stay away from all women. It's like, I don't think it's necessarily about that. I think it's more so about you have to be confident in yourself in order for you to know whether a woman is right for you or not.
Yeah. 1,000%. Yeah. 1,000%, man. This drop some fire in the chat again for this young Israelite man here, man. This young Rise member, because I really appreciate it. Because I love this discussion because it's so very vital to ourselves as well as to those out there again, right, who are Israelite men, right, who are seeking to know and understand again what it means to be an Israelite man and the role that we do carry to our family, most importantly, to our nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, and that's the most important thing. Is a man's love for, and talking earlier about this, about even when you read through a lot of what Jesus would tell his disciples or even tell the people, and he'd have a whole bunch of stories, right? He'd have a whole bunch of different ways of wording it, different parables, different, you know what I mean? He would use multiple angles to try and attack, but I noticed that it always kind of come down to like the same ideals, and it's your love for this nation and our God, and your love for your brethren. And so I think both those things are so vital as a man to kind of hold in your heart and hold dearly, because when you hold those things dearly, I think a lot of other things kind of come into play. You take both those things, and then you add the characteristics of hard work, the characteristics of, and we're going to go through some more of them, but you add those characteristics to that same man, and that man becomes unstoppable.
Oh man, 100%. Drop some fires in the chat. Drop some fires in the chat again for that. You mentioned something, right, about the respect and humility and what that really means. So if we can, let's turn to Hebrews 13. Let's do it. This is something that I've always again, right, it's one of those things we talk about a lot of times. You read the scriptures, and you're always gonna get something different or new, right, that you read 100 times. Mm-hmm. But the way it stands out and if what you really see is what makes it so key, right? So I'm in Hebrews 13. It's just one verse I want to read. Verse 17. Obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they that must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. Man.
I'm sorry, I was still trying.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. Mm-hmm. Man, this is so. Sometimes we see, you watch different things, right? And you see people pull scriptures, right? Yeah. And I saw someone pull this scripture, right, as a means to the justification of chattel slavery, right? Oh, okay. Of why not to believe in the Bible, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Chattel slavery, right? We know what the damage that did to us, right? Our forefathers. Mm-hmm. They didn't watch for our souls. They didn't give an account for our souls. They didn't care about us. Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying? It's one of those things. This is different, right? When we speak about leadership, and we speak about their respect, that's what we was talking about, right? Having that respect, right? And they go in both ways, right? Mm-hmm. Man, that's now we're talking. Now it hits a little bit different. Yeah. Now it hits a little bit different, right? Because if leadership is praying for me, right, and they're giving an account to the God of Israel for me, you best believe I want them to be joyous when they're doing it.
Yeah.
You best believe I want them to be as happy and excited as possible to give that account.
Right.
Again, right? If we're out here just doing things crazy, right, or we out here just kind of out of our mind, just doing the silliest things, right? I know the scripture that comes to mind is Eli, the priest Eli, his sons, right?
Yeah.
And how, matter of fact, let's turn to it. Let's go to 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 2. We can talk about it, but it's better to read about it, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 1 Samuel chapter 2, right? And
I think it's around 22.
Verse 12. Can you read verse 12?
It started at 12? Okay.
Just read verse 12 and then we kind of jump.
Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord.
Okay. Right then and there, we know something wrong.
Something is wrong.
Something is extremely wrong, right?
Yeah.
This is definitely not what Israelite men should be doing, right? Or definitely, absolutely not doing, right? Because you can't have a father that's a priest and not the Lord.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Right.
How does that happen, right? Mm-hmm. So let's just jump down for 22.
Now Eli was very old and heard all that his sons did unto all Israel, and how they lay with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he said unto them, Why do ye such things? For I hear of your evil dealings by all this people. Nay, my sons, for it is no good report that I hear. Ye make the Lord's people to transgress. If one man sin against another, the judge shall judge him. But if a man sin against the Lord, who shall entreat for him? Notwithstanding, they hearken not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them.
All right, stop right there. Whew. Ooh, that's heavy.
Yeah, and I think I think it speaks to the idea that the role of the father is vital when it comes to raising children. Because yes, we know that for the most of history of just, as humans, the mother's usually in the home with the child.
Absolutely.
But we know that father figure is vitally important in also being able to curate this child to be how you want the child to be, in order for the child to grow up and to be a man, a goodly man. And so we see that necessity, and I think Eli kind of failing to be able to be there, or failing to in order to kind of set his sons in check, ends up being Eli's downfall at the end of his life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
But so looking at it, let's look at it from both angles, right? What we spoke about earlier, right? When we talk about the respect that you must have, right, unto that leadership. Eli's more than just a dad to them.
Yeah.
He's a leader in Israel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is a double dip of disrespect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And again, right, for Eli, right? I mean, let's look at the verse, right? If a man sin against the Lord, who shall entreat for him? It's one thing to disrespect your brethren, right?
Yeah.
To cause their downfall. But when you disrespect the God of Israel, I mean, you can imagine, right? As a dad, right? As a man, he's saying this with emotion. He's not just saying this like, guys, you guys are messed up, right? I imagine there's probably some tears in his eyes as he's telling them that. I mean, look at their response, right? They hearken not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them. To know that that's the judgment.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
We see how deep it is. Again, we talk about that respect factor, and then that responsibility factor that we have to each other. It's not just something that we just kind of just pop up and just kind of be like, oh well, it's okay, or that's fine. No, this is not a small matter.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Which is, and again, like you said, it speaks to Eli's right ability to teach his kids, right, for them to grow and know and understand.
Yeah.
Right, because you imagine they probably flex a little bit, like who our dad is.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, and I think a lot of it starts young too. Like it kind of starts with in the development stage, because like what I'm thinking is, how did it get to this point? Like, why do they feel okay doing that? You know what I mean? Like, that's really the problem. Even as we like talk about a lot of it's like quote unquote sins in the Bible, a lot of times we talk about sin being at the door. Well, it's like, this is an example, like, okay, how did it get there? Like, what events led up to you feeling like this is okay? You know?
Oh man.
And so that has to do with the home and the household and so.
Oh man.
Right.
Oh man. Yes, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
You hit it on the head there. You hit it on the head there, right? It's not something that's overnight, right?
Right.
Again,
it's not
going
overnight.
back.
I mean, yes, kids are bad. We know kids are bad. I was bad. Everyone was bad, to some extent. But like, even despite the badness, I think the role of the mother and father is to mold that child. So they're gonna rebel. They're gonna discipline. But they say spare the rod, spoil the child, right? And so I think that's part of that.
Especially for them to know not the Lord, right?
Yeah, for them not to know the Lord means something went wrong. Something went wrong.
And again, it's one of those things. It really makes you think, right? Because they're living in the land. They know the culture, but it's still they knew not the Lord.
Yeah. These are Israelite men, and they're there like they're standing at the door of the tabernacle. So they have roles. They even have roles in the culture. So they have roles in the culture with no integrity whatsoever.
Oh man, you know what? It reminds me of the scripture, right? When it talks about how their hearts are far away. It's just a job now. Mm-hmm. They have a duty to the nation, but to his sons, it's just a job. It's something it's something that's put on me that I just have to do.
Yeah.
They don't see the benefit of it. They don't see the purpose for the nation, for their role and their responsibility.
Right. And I think it's important as an Israelite man that you do see it, because as Israelite men, we are leaders, natural leaders. And even if you just look into the world, like, black men are natural leaders. And so with that power, I think you have to, as you said, like, you got to use that power and understand like where you're supposed to use your strength, like where you're supposed to use your strength. And so for them not to know the Lord, there's a disconnect there. And I feel like that disconnect, it can happen. And I think just growing up in this culture and being born in this culture, it can be easy to take advantage of the culture, or I guess take the culture for granted. That's the phrase I meant. Take the culture 100%. For granted, right? Because as they know, like, their dad is like, he's the guy, so they don't have much to worry about as far as that. So they already have positions just purely,
we're just doing what we want to do.
Right, exactly. So I think it's important that it's not about roles per se, but it's about the ideals. And same thing always comes back to, when it comes to Israelite men, it's about who you are on the inside. And that's what's going to determine your character, which will allow you to be a goodly Israelite man.
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
So even go a step further, if this is the leader of Israel and his sons who are in a position to leadership, right? If I'm an everyday Israelite and I see them doing this, I'm thinking to myself, it's okay, right? Which goes back, right, to calls. What it says, they took calls. I'm sorry, where were we at, right?
Yeah, because that can have influence on other people. You're seeing the son of the leaders do that. It can have influence on.
Oh, absolutely. You're like, oh, it must be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, which speaks to the punishment that Eli received.
Yeah, exactly. Because that type of that can spread. It already was spreading. So yeah.
And he kind of let it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Hard decisions, right? So going back to even the responsibility part, right? And again, we want to pull out certain characteristics to really show what it takes to be an Israelite man, right? Because we're not saying, we're not going to use the terms good Israelite man or bad Israelite man, because for us, when we hear the term Israelite man, it automatically means, right, righteous men, right? This is the way we're looking at it, right? We're not looking at it through the lens of, they were Israelite men, they did bad. Then for me, they couldn't have been Israelite men then, because Israelite men don't do bad, right? So that's just the way I'm looking at it, right?
But I think it's also important to note that even through struggle though and through bad, because I don't think that Israel necessarily is about good and bad per se.
Oh no, never.
Because it is, but Israel is about family.
Yes.
And so because Israel is about family, it's like there's an extensive bad in which you're damaging the family, which is where we see kind of with Eli and his sons, kind of like, oh, this is, you can't damage the family. But regardless, though, like even though they were they didn't do good, they're still Eli's sons, and they still are, and they're still manning the door of the tabernacle. Like that didn't change, right?
Which is crazy.
It's crazy. That's the fact. But like they are, so like yeah, so they are still Israelite men. I think it's just more so about you have to understand how to apply yourself to be a fighter for the God of Israel, instead of being a factor of the reason why. I guess instead of being against the God of Israel, or being a factor for being a negative factor, or someone who's pulling the nation down. You
Exactly.
know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, let me stand corrected, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's never about good and evil. It's about righteous and unrighteous.
Right. Because exactly, there are different types of men, right? You have men who have different types of jobs. They think different types of thoughts. We're all different and unique. We can't always control those things. And I think you don't also want to fall into the mentality of Christian morality.
Yes.
Because the Christian morality doesn't necessarily align with righteousness as we see in the Bible, right?
Not at all.
Right.
Not at all.
The term righteous is it's been used so much that it has a very Christian mindset that you naturally put on there.
It's been transformed.
What's a good and what's bad. Right?
Exactly. It's been transformed, right? Like we always say, righteous has nothing to do with good and bad.
Right.
It has everything to do with following instruction.
Exactly.
So you following instruction,
Exactly.
that's what makes it righteous. If not, then it's unrighteous.
Exactly.
Good and evil. I mean, who's the judge of good and evil?
Exactly. And we see Jesus say that all the time. He'd be like, I mean, I'm not.
We were sent in to kill entire villages.
Exactly.
And nations, right?
Exactly.
In the world's lens and their perspective, right? Oh, that's just bad. How could anybody do that, right? Again, they're looking at it through their lens, their moral compass, which isn't a moral compass, right?
And it's funny because Christianity, they came and they slaughtered
everybody.
Like, be a Christian, be a Christian. So
and that was
yeah,
because it's crazy, right? Because now the victor gets to say, "Oh, well, love your enemies."
Yeah. And
it's easy to say that when you're on top.
Be a Christian, love me.
Yeah.
So that whole concept of what's good and what's bad, that's all mumbo jumbo. But it's so ingrained in us as a culture.
Yes.
It's so hard to pull out of it. But yeah, I think as Israelite men, we have to understand our values, because once we understand our values, then it makes it easy for us to use our strengths for the benefit of the nation.
Oh man!
And at that point,
Amen.
If you're doing that, I guarantee you're walking towards righteousness.
Amen.
If you're helping to benefit the nation, yeah, that's what we need. That's what the God of Israel wants, and we even have examples of that in Nehemiah.
Yes,
where we see people, men, using their hands to build the nation. Physically
I love this story so much.
Yeah.
Primarily because we live in a society again, right? Men, right? And I really want to say this. We cannot make excuses for ourselves, and we cannot feel sorry for ourselves. We have to take what we have and go. We cannot keep looking towards what we had yesterday with our ancestors. Look at what they went through in order for us to get to where we are today. So for us to sit here and make excuses for ourselves, we're doing them a disservice. Especially once you know who you are, then you're doing the God of Israel a disservice, because He is our strength. So going to this story in Nehemiah, mm-hmm. I love this so much because this is a no excuse story. Mm-hmm. This is, I'm gonna get it done. As men, we're gonna get it done no matter what the circumstances may be. We're gonna get it done. So let's go.
Let's turn to it, yeah.
Let's go. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 4. And so just for context purposes, right? So this is after the Babylonian captivity. We're coming into the land. We're coming back into the land in different waves, right?
Leaving Persia now.
Exactly, right?
Leaving Persia, yeah.
And so we were given the task, right, to go and rebuild. Right? It wasn't a blueprint, right? Again, it really speaks to that, right? That's why I get passionate when we talk about Israelite men. They just were told to go and rebuild. They wasn't like, okay, wait, what am I supposed to go do? right? They wasn't reactive, right? They were proactive. They went and started to go and rebuild.
Yeah.
To go and make it happen. If you're there, you can go ahead and just start reading.
Nehemiah 4. Nehemiah 4. But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we builded the wall, he was wroth, and took great indignation, and mocked the Jews. And he spake before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, What do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned? And so, yeah, as you said, just context-wise, they're there building.
They're making fun of us.
Yeah. Yeah, they're there building, and they're being made fun of at the same time. Now, Tobiah the Ammonite was by him, and he said, Even that which they built, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for prey in the land of captivity. And cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee, for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders.
Okay, I just want you to stop right there. That's not a very nice response we have for them, right? That's not a very, but again, right? They're coming at us in such an aggressive manner, right? And the reason being is because they have come into the land and kind of set up shop. Right, so they want a portion of it, and we're like, no, you can't have a portion of this. Right, we're going to do this, right? And so now they come to poke fun and make fun of us. And our response was, again, right, that of one that's going, you're an adversary of mine, right? I'm not going to pray for you. I'm not going to hope that your mind and your heart has changed, right? That's not what's going to happen. You're an adversary to me and my God.
You're adversary to what we're trying to do.
Exactly, exactly. You mean us no good, right? So you go ahead.
6. So built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work.
Oof. Again.
But it came to pass, same. So it's that same mentality, it's not easy, and as you said, there's no blueprint. There's no one telling you like, okay, you're gonna go down there, and we're gonna have this, and we're gonna have that, and we're gonna be able to just, no one's gonna bother us. We're gonna have our own section. Like, no, like this is hard work in the middle of the trenches. There's nothing good going on in this area.
This is the worst possible circumstance you can have and rebuild. Right. This is the absolute worst.
And the people around the people around are completely unsupportive of what you're trying to do. So that's also another part.
They want to kill us.
Yeah.
Pretty much they want to rid us, right? No, go back to wherever you came, wherever captivity you were just in, go back there, right? Because we're taking back our home.
Let's see, Verse 7. But it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up, and that the breaches began to be stopped, then they were very wroth, and conspired all of them together to come and to fight against Jerusalem, and to hinder it. Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God, and set a watch against them day and night. And set a watch against them day and night because of them.
Okay, stop right there again. Oh, it's just so much meat here.
Yeah.
We said a prayer into our God, and we went right back to work.
Yeah.
We went right back. We didn't. We're not going to wait. We're not going to wait and say, okay, what should we do now? What can we do now?
Keep building.
We said a prayer.
Yeah.
And we kept building.
But it's also the understanding that they were also very logical in how they should approach the situation. They're not waiting for an angel to come down and solve all their problems. It's like, no, I pray to God, right? He has me. I have his strength. We're here on a mission. The logical thing to do, okay, let's set up watch. Let's set up watch.
Good point. Good point, right?
It's making the smart decision as well.
Because how many people does they say, well, let's stop. Let's go and battle them and fight them.
Yeah.
And, hopefully we're victorious and then go back to building.
And that's another thing. A good point as far as Israelite men, as far as not being, it's not being so emotional that it hinders what you're trying to do.
Hey, oh, man, you hit the head on it. Oh, man, you hit it.
So I know there's a big debate out there about men being too emotional or men not showing any emotion. And I think wherever you may fall on the scale, I think the judge is really, are your emotions hindering your ability to get where you need to go or achieve what you need to achieve?
Yes.
Because once that's the case, then you have a problem too emotional.
Yes. Oh, man, it's perfect, right? or your emotions impacting the work for the God of Israel?
Right.
Because if you're on that level again, now you're absolutely in the wrong space now.
Right. Because they could have easily let their emotions like, man, I'm about to fight this dude, bro, because he's talking about da 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 da, and she said he's trying to come for me, but I'm here on a mission for the nation. So they could have easily let that emotion, let the taunting get to them, and they respond emotionally as well.
Yes.
And then who knows, maybe it could have been a fight, and the building still not being built. So yeah, it's important. Keep your head on a swivel.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I think verse 9.
And they just got more cautious. Verse 9.
I'm sorry, verse 10.
Verse 10. And Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. And our adversaries said, they shall not know, neither see, till we come in the midst among them, and slay them, and cause the work to cease. And it came to pass that when the Jews which dwelt by them came, they said unto us 10 times, from all places whence ye shall return unto us, they will be upon you. Therefore set I in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places I even set the people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows.
Oh man. So again, right? So
Yeah.
they're hearing this, right? They're being mocked as this is going on.
Yeah.
Again, not ceasing to work,
Yeah.
but having the wisdom to really say, okay, you know what? We're just going to modify some things a little bit, right?
Everybody's strapped up now. Everybody's strapped up.
Everybody, you're gonna go and do the work, right? But now I'm gonna have this person right here. This person is gonna be there, and everybody's gonna be on watch.
Yeah. It reminds me of like the Black Panther Party.
Oh yeah,
Something like that. Yeah. It's like, all right, we got to protect ourselves.
yeah. So let's go and get, again, the work cannot cease.
Right.
The work, we talk about not having any excuses.
Right.
Man, I mean, think about it. Who can survive and who can do this?
Right.
Who can do this but people who have the God of Israel?
Right.
Again, right? They understand the source of their strength, right? Which is why before they did anything, they made prayer.
Yeah.
And they went back to work.
Yeah, went back to work.
And as you can imagine, right, the confidence of, you know what? Let's go and do it. We're going to just keep doing it. We're going to keep doing it. But if we have to fight, we will fight.
Right. And I think another thing is also detaching kind of like the idea of like the Christian morality kind of out of it, because like he's like, oh wait, you're gonna get swords and thing, like no, just pray, right? Just pray for them, just bow your heads, and like no, like that doesn't make any sense. So it's kind of like even like removing that out of the equation too, and seeing no, like we're reading about real people who went through real adversity, real trial, and this is a real threat,
Oh man,
and so being a man and being able to understand like, hey, what do we do? Like, how should we proceed?
The reason I laugh is because I'm visualizing this, right? You start to build a wall. It's not like these people are 200 miles down the road. They're right there mocking you,
they're right there,
laughing at you, telling you they're going to stop you.
Right.
They're telling you, hey, we're going to stop them. We're not going to let them do this.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to that part, right? Having your emotions in check enough to know that there's a greater purpose here.
Right. Exactly.
Can you think about the pride now?
Yeah.
It's not even just about just building this wall. Now I have a dedication. Now I have pride in order to rebuild this, because look at all this adversity I'm facing right now.
Right.
That is,
it adds to it. Yeah. It's true. And I think there's a wisdom in that as well. There's a wisdom in to understand when to proceed forward.
Oh yeah. Instead of just acting, right?
Right, exactly. Instead of just acting purely off of, the emotion of how people are trying to pull you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we verse 14, and we'll stop at 17.
Okay. And I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses. And it came to pass when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. And it came to pass from that time forth, that the half of my servants wrought in the work, and the other half of them held both the spears, the shields, and the bows, and the habergeons, that the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. They which builded on the wall, and they that bear burdens, which those that laded, Everyone with one of his hands wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon.
Oh man, I love this. Oh man, go back to the beginning, right? When men were men,
Talking
right?
about men being men. No, but it's true though. It's like it's so true, and that's what I'm saying. So I think, as you said, we can have there's a concepts in our head that are built as far as what's good, what's bad, what's wrong, what's evil, what's good, what's evil. But I think it always boils down, and I think I love how they word it in verse 14 specifically, because as a man it says, "Be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible," right? So we have the ability to be amazing and shine and the light shining, and we also have the ability to be murderers, and you will not touch our flock. Right? You will not touch our flock. Right?
So it's a war cry.
And providers, yeah.
So it's a war cry, right? So
defenders.
Don't be afraid. The Lord can fight your battle. Or you're more afraid of them, or you're more afraid of the Lord. Now, to really think about that, right? Now, he's mighty and he's also terrible.
Yeah, he's great and terrible. Great, and the same God that put us. I mean, you see the stuff that we go through as people. Like he knows what he's doing.
Absolutely.
The world is not roses and rainbows.
Absolutely.
And then on top of that, right after that, it says, "And fight for your." It says, "The Lord is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses." So when you're talking about applying the whole idea of men being men, applying that correctly is correct. That's right. But you have to. But it all comes from in here. Like, who are you fighting for? You know.
Oh my goodness.
Like, protecting yourself and your family and this culture. That's what makes you a strong Israelite man.
Can you imagine today? Can you imagine that today? Right, the rally cry to say, "Fight for your brethren." I love it because that's the first thing that's mentioned. That's the very first thing that's mentioned. Fight for your brethren, and then for your families, and then to go through that list, right? Really brings it back home, right? That hey, you're not in this alone.
Yeah.
You're standing there. Your brethren is standing over there. The brethren, they're all round about you, and they're all doing the same thing, and they're all ready to fight for you and die for you to build this wall back up.
Yeah, and then as brothers, we almost attach when we have those goals, those similar goals, we align, and then we create like a chemistry with each other. And I mean, we had a great and terrible army, so we know how that used to go.
Oh man, This story is so amazing, especially when we talk about having courage.
If you love what you're hearing so far, make sure you throw the fires in the chat, the sevens in the chat, the sevens in the fires. And, of course, subscribe to the channel. Flex your muscles. Put the muscle emojis up. Flex your muscles.
Yes, let's hear it for the role of this is these are Israelite men.
Of course.
When you want to know men being men and what that means and how it looks, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Fighting for your brethren, doing the work of the nation. Mm. This is a perfect example of that. This wasn't just for, if it was just you or I that day, I don't personally benefit, you don't personally benefit, but we all benefit when we're putting ourselves collectively together as one.
Yeah, to do this work. Yeah.
Oh, man. This is one of those stories, man, it's so emotional and it's so exciting at the same time because, again, you can visualize, you can see them there really, again, right? You're
fighting for their families.
And you're a little fearful, right, because of what's going on around about you.
I mean, we're talking about it sitting in chairs doing this lesson, but I mean, they were really there with their lives on the line, right? So you got to understand even the emotional mindset that they were in. Probably a lot of pressure, and probably were scared, but they probably had fear, pressure, doubt, like all those things were very real emotions that they felt in that moment.
Without a doubt.
But even through those emotions, they have a very clear goal, and they're focused, and they were able to, figure out a way to okay, well, let's just adjust. But we're not going to stop the work, right?
Amen. Oh man, light it up in the chat. Light it up for this Israelite man next to me. Light it up in the chat. But you know what? So this brings the call again, right, to another characteristics when we talk about Israelite men, right, and how we should be. and that is confident. When you look around society today, right, and we talked about it in the beginning, right, where we don't necessarily have that role model to really instill that confidence in us, right? Because there's nothing like when you hear a man, somebody you look up to tell you good job. It's nothing like that. It's nothing can replace that when they reassure you that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
But when you have the confidence, again, and knowing who you are, knowing what you do, the things you're able to accomplish. Yeah. Right? And one of my favorite, everybody's favorite, but this is definitely my favorite scripture in the Bible, right? And I want to turn to 1 Samuel chapter 17.
1 Samuel chapter 17.
For context, and everybody's going to know what I'm talking about if they already didn't get it by the scripture. Israel is fighting. Israel is at war with those old pesky Philistines.
Always at war with the Philistines. It seems to be.
We're having an issue with the Philistines, but part of that, right, is that they're winning against us, right? So confidence is weighing.
Yeah.
Because you can you have faith, you believe, and sometimes you're doing it, and it's still just not something is wrong, right?
Yeah. You don't always win.
They're having confidence in the wrong tools, right?
Yeah.
In the wrong manner. The confidence is pointed in the wrong direction, right? So I won't build it up anymore. Let's jump into again 1 Samuel 17. My read it if you can. Let's start at verse 1.
Verse 1, 1 Samuel 17. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shechach, which belonged to Judah, and pitched between Shechach and Azekah and Ephes-dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together, and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. And he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him.
All right, start there.
Wow.
This is a big guy.
Huge guy.
This is a big guy.
Huge guy. And he's covered in metal. Covered in just...
and
like he could barely stand.
And for him to walk out,
him be able to walk in it is almost like, wow, he must be a big guy to hold all that on him.
So this is the champion of the Philistines, right?
All right.
So this is their perfect representation of what they can present for.
Yeah.
Right? Of what they can present for. This is
their ideal man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is their ideal. This is their guy. This is their champion. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Verse 8.
And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then I will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants, and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid.
Think about that. Think about that for a second. Again, we see how sometimes not so much how easily our confidence can be shook, but just at this sight of this great wonder. That it just dwindles down completely. Yeah. To the point that we're so afraid.
Yeah.
This goes back to think about what he's saying. If I defeat you, you will serve me. What?
Yeah, that's a lot.
When we talk about our law, statute, commandments, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's not our goal. That's not what we're gonna do. We're not gonna do any of that, right? We're not gonna serve. We're not gonna serve a man.
Right.
We're not gonna serve your false god. We're not gonna do that, right?
Of course not. Yeah.
And again, right, our mentality a lot of times, right, is I like to believe they took that from us, right? That give me liberty or give me death, right? Give me righteousness or give me death. If we cannot, I refuse to bow down to you.
Yeah.
You have to take my life, right?
Yeah.
So it's just
it's that energy. But I mean, at the same time, it's that like the fear and their shakiness. It's like natural human body.
Yes,
Like even you can be very, very confident.
You
in
can
yourself,
see this
and
giant.
you see something huge come at you. It's a very natural human response, right? But then it's also about, okay, well, what do you do with that response, right?
Yeah.
Like which one? Like, do you run towards or do you run away, right? It's like fight or flight, they say.
Yeah, and running away is.
And as we see, they were dismayed and greatly afraid, right? So they're definitely on the let's think about how we're going to attack this. They were definitely more on the defensive than they were on the offensive
So
in their mindset.
You think you can think clearly when you're afraid?
No, you can't. But there's one thing that what's it called? I was taught. I guess I had a conversation, and I think it relates to the story so well. But I was having a conversation with my grandfather, and I asked him. I said, "How are you so confident? Like, how are you whenever you're able to, go after things you want? How can you go after and be so sure of yourself?" And I remember he responded and told me, like, every time you feel that feeling in your chest or in your heart that you're afraid or that something makes you feel less than or weak, you run into it. You run towards it. And you do that enough times, and eventually you notice confidence being built within you in order to handle whatever life throws at you.
Amen.
So, Amen. So that's So I think that relates to a story like this so well. So,
absolutely.
I took that to heart, and
I'm taking it to heart now.
Like I like to live by that. So
run through it. I love that.
Run through it. You run through the fire.
Verse 12.
Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse. And he had 8 sons, and the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. And carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. And now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up with the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?
Okay. I always love this verse. You talk about the perfect representation. Talk about a rally cry.
Yeah.
So David is not even, like, all these things that's happening around him, right? he's seeing the army, right? He's excited, right, to go and see how. And I love his dad Jesse. What he tells him to go and do, right? Mm-hmm. He says, "Hey, go and see how thy brethren fare, right? Mm-hmm. Not how your brothers are doing. Go and see how the entire nation is faring in this battle." Mm-hmm. And David goes, right? He's excited and he salutes his brethren, and he sees them being afraid, and he's looking at this giant like, you could imagine, right? He's looking like, "What are you guys doing?
Right?
Like, what should be done with them?" Like, I would imagine, right? All these things, right? That, the house is going to be free in Israel, great riches, all these different things, probably doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
The biggest point is I'm gonna take away this reproach from my brethren. Yeah. I'm gonna take away this reproach from Israel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because who is he? Going back again, confidence and understanding. Going back to the beginning of what an Israelite man is, right? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine?
Yeah.
This Philistine doesn't have a connection with the living God. He doesn't have a covenant with the living God. Who is he that he should defy the living God's army?
Yeah.
Do you know who we are?
Right.
Do you know what we are capable of?
Yeah, and it's true. And I think there's an angle that can be played on this slightly, where they say, "Oh, because of his youth, he's
doesn't understand the realm.
Doesn't understand the realm. You're right. So he's like naive a little bit.
Oh, good for him.
And so that fear hasn't been built in him, right? And like, yes, I think I agree with that, because as we know, we're supposed to be like children, right? To kind of have that no fear. Like, we want to be in that mindset. It's kind of the world that kind of pulls you down enough to where fear really builds in you.
Yeah.
But even besides that, though, because I don't think we can limit the story to being analyzed just like that, because we know that David also before this, he was out there killing lions. So he definitely knows what fear is, and he knows what life and death can mean. So the angle of him being not understanding, like, or his innocency being the only reason, I don't think that's true either. I think this is an example of someone whose courage and whose strengths align with the nation so much. It's in his heart, like his personality, it's just in him, right? It's in his wants and desires so much that we see, as we said, when you put the characteristics together with the man, then you have an unstoppable force.
Oh man, he was on such a
put it together with your love for your God and your love to protect the nation. You put that together, your love for your brethren, your love for this God, and you put that together with your characteristics as a strong man. Now you have an unstoppable force.
You have an amazing. You know what? I want to take it into another direction as well, right? Mm-hmm. Again, that's why I love about this story. There's so many different angles. Think about the type of dad that Jesse is. Mm-hmm. That all his sons are in this war, fighting for the nation. And that his youngest son, right? He's like, okay, you're too young to go and fight, but hey, that's what I need you to go and do. You're going to deliver this, right? You're still going to be a part of this, right? And upon seeing this, right, you can imagine, right, that emotion, right? Again, when you see brethren are down or sad, you want to react. You want to do something. Mm-hmm. But David's just looking like, absolutely not. You will not come in here and disrupt who we are or defy who we are. And you really see it, again, talking about that, the role of Israelite men and having that confidence and courage to go out there and to do the unthinkable. Yeah. As well as the character of Jesse and how he even brings his sons up for them to even be a part of that. Yeah. Think about the honor. And again, right, it's hard for us to really conceive that living in this country, right? The honor to fight for your nation. The honor to fight for your country, right? Again, for us, it's almost like, no, I'll pass.
And we because like we're not dying out here to try and fight for America per se, you know.
Absolutely not.
Our oppressors is like, who are we helping? I don't know, but I mean, but yeah, as you said though, but like even in war, like if you use American war as example, even if you use it as an example that we can kind of understand, you can understand the passion and the drive that people who do fight for America, for the country, the people, like you can see the passion and the drive that gets instilled
Oh,
within
100%.
them just by going through the act. Right?
100%.
So you can imagine how much more that could be amplified if you're talking about fighting for our God.
Absolutely. I always say this, right? I mean, even going to like, what was the biggest thing a couple years ago? Kneeling for the anthem, right? Mm-hmm. And the outrage that people had, right? And I'm like, of course they should be outraged. I know how I would feel if
this was my country.
If this was Israel, of course. What do you mean? Somebody's in our midst and we have our anthem and we're doing this and somebody's going to disrespect that. Of course I understand it, right? Mm-hmm. It's looking at that same attribute and understanding, like, look at the betterment that it's for. Yeah. Not for a false country, right? I mean, again, if the Philistines doing something, absolutely not. We don't care about that. Yeah. But for our own and for what we do, yeah, absolutely. We give it the highest of the highest respect, right. The highest of the highest authority of what it really truly means to us.
Right. And it's about taking pride in yourself and taking pride in your nation.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh man. And you talk about fight for your nation. I can't think of anybody better than King David. It brings me to another story.
You saw how he expanded the nation.
Oh man, tremendously.
So seeing that this is like his childhood, it's almost like you can imagine the people who saw this happen and be like, "Oh, this kid's gonna be different." You know, like,
can you imagine the stories? That's like,
right. Like if
after he's killed, right?
Type of strength at this age, just like
after he goes on to kill Goliath. At this point, whatever he does, I'm 100% with him. So think about, so you know how infectious it is when we doing something bad. Yeah. Now look at when you're doing something good. You're doing something righteous. So now, hey, whatever he needs, I got him. I'm there for him. Right. Because I saw what he did on this battlefield. Right. I know what our nation means to him, right? And it's the same way we look at each other today as Israelite men, right? What does my nation mean to you? What does our God mean to you? What does our brethren mean to you? Yeah. What are you willing to do for our nation, our brethren, most importantly for the God of Israel? Right.
And so it's up to us to be able to grab mantles and kind of be leaders, because we naturally are leaders and people are going to be looking at you regardless. So for you to attach it to your faith is the best thing you can do for the nation.
Oh, 100%. So it does bring me to another story, King David. And I really want to highlight this, right? Because it further amplifies, again, his character, right? Again, we talk about the role of Israelite man. We can just say King David and just close the book and we just be done, right?
But also another thing, though, that I also think we could also have a tendency to do is also praise the people in the past as if they weren't human, right? Yeah. The people in the past are just as human as the people you see.
Oh yeah, mistakes, right? Absolutely.
Right, is what I'm saying. And like David wasn't perfect. David had faults too. David went through trials. David had problems in his own household with his children. So like things weren't perfect, right? But regardless, I think, yes, David is a good example, but we also don't want to fall into the notion that, oh, well, he's David, I can never. Like, no, like we have to understand that the same relationship that David had with our God is the same relationship that we can have with our God.
Amen. 100%. Right. 100%. You know what? You bring up a good point. King David had his faults. His heart never left the God of Israel, though. Right. Right. That's what we know is key, right? Your heart. Where is your heart? Do you have the heart to continue to do the work, right? Mistakes may come and mistakes may happen. Mm-hmm. But your heart, where is your heart at? Right. What is it being put towards? And it makes it, again, so much special, right? So, real quick, I want to jump to 2 Samuel 1.
It's like, give me the old-time religion?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want it like them.
Exactly.
It's true, though. It's very possible.
Without a doubt. And again, this speaks again to...
where are we at?
2 Samuel 1. It speaks again to David's character, right? So, we know, right? David is proclaimed, right, the new king of Israel, right? Mm-hmm. Even within that, right? And we know Saul is after him, right? Saul really wants to kill him, right? And again, right? David has such a high character, morality, all these different things, right? That David refused to let those issues, right? Saul's issues with him interfere with who he was. He never stopped loving King Saul. Yeah. He never stopped loving King Saul. Even when King Saul hated him and wanted to kill him, he never stopped loving him.
Yeah, had him on the run.
Like, Oh man, again, we talk about, you know, especially Jacobites today. You know, man, we killing each other for stepping on tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Let alone he's trying to kill him,
Yeah.
and he's like, no, I will not, I will not have that attitude toward him.
Yeah, and that speaks to his love for the culture, and also just speaks to the culture, right? To the culture, and his respect for the culture.
Yes,
Right.
Love of your brethren, right?
Yeah.
So if we can just real quick, let's read 1 to about 16.
We're at
Second Samuel 1.
2 Samuel 1. Okay, I'm making sure. Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. It came even to pass on the third day that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes rent, and earth upon his head. And so it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance. And David said unto him, From whence comest thou? And he said unto him, Out of the camp of Israel am I escaped. And David said unto him, How went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, That the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead. And Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. And David said unto the young man that told him, How knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan his son be dead? And the young man that told him said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me, and called unto me. And I answered, Here am I. And he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. And he said unto me again, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. So I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head, and the bracelet that was on his arm, and I brought them hither unto my Lord. Then David took hold on his clothes, and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him.
Okay, stop right there. I'm sorry, read one more voice. I'm sorry, read one more verse.
And they mourned and wept and fasted until even for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword.
All right, stop right there. Man, you can just see it come to life.
Right.
Now, we know David knows he's been appointed king over Israel, right? But yet, and this is the opportunity, right? David didn't want to kill Saul, right? Mm-hmm. Saul is fallen, so it's like, okay, well, now it's kind of a transition period.
Yeah,
now.
It's supposed to be a win in a way for David. Supposed to be,
because it's it's like, okay, these it kind of played out a certain way.
Oh yes, I mean, although he also lost his best friend, but regardless, though, it's technically there's no longer someone trying to actively kill him, right?
His response, though.
His response.
And for the people that are with him, he cried not only for Jonathan, but for Saul.
Yeah.
And for the people of
Israel.
Israel.
Yes, he cried for the people of Israel.
He cried for his brethren.
Yeah.
For they fell by the sword.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man, again, you talk about
where his mind is at.
You talk about a love for the God of Israel and for his people. Oh, my goodness, man. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. How many people like, oh, it's at least it's not me. They was like, no. Anytime one of my brethren fall, one of them. I mean, they fasted. They fasted the whole night. Yeah. Like, again, it really to show that impact of what this meant to them, right? It can't be understated. It's just something, again, it speaks so much to his character. And just that of how an Israelite man should be, right? Yeah. And what we should do and what we mean to our brethren, right? That respect for our brethren, that respect for each other. It cannot be understated. It really can't be understated.
Yeah, no, it can't be. And it's the respect he holds for not just Saul and Jonathan, but also the respect that he holds to Israel. Like, everything comes back to that. So his mind is not even focused on technically the individual win that this might affect his life positively, right? His mind can't even go there, right? Like that's not his immediate
The last
reaction
thing
is pure sadness.
grief.
Yeah,
It's
right?
nothing but grief.
Yeah, right. Because of what that means. I mean, okay. So you're telling me the king of Israel just died? How can that be a win?
Yeah.
He's our king, the people's king of us as a nation that's just fallen. Can't be a win.
Oh man, again,
God's anointed, right? We saw Samuel.
Yeah.
Samuel anointed Saul as our first king, right? So what Saul meant to the nation is undescribable to even to David, and we see that it's the same. We see this same David that killed Goliath, right? And
as a man,
that's
now.
the Saul that he was a kid, and Saul was Saul, and he's known Saul his whole life as he's the king of Israel, right? So yeah.
So now it's like, oh man, this is again right, and he developed a relationship with him,
right? Yeah.
But also, and we're gonna read a little bit further on, right? Because David's response to this young man is key too, right?
Yeah.
Verse 13.
And David said unto the young man that told him, Whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger and Amalekite. And David said unto him, How wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, Go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And David said unto him, Thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth has testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. And David lamented with this lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son.
Oh man. Oh my goodness, man.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot in there.
His response to him.
Yeah.
Was and he's listening to his words, right? And he's grieving, right?
Yeah.
But even after the young man comes and kills him, right? And David's like, Your blood is upon your hand. Your own mouth has testified against you.
Yeah.
You touch the Lord's anointed.
Yeah. And so now he has to be dealt with. He has to be.
This is after he brought the bracelets to show him, to confirm, like, hey,
right.
this is
I don't know if
theirs.
he's expecting a prize or.
He's just delivering the message, right? But David is such a stout Israelite. And for his brethren, they're absolutely not.
Yeah.
You lifted your hand against my brethren?
Right.
I don't care if he told you to do it.
And
how are you not afraid to do this?
It's a perfect example of using your strength as a man. David is a warrior. He knows, like, we got kill. Like, that's probably in his head all the time, right? So he's a warrior. He understands that, and he understands when to use it. Mm-hmm. But this is an example of using your strengths for the benefit of the nation, right? Using your strengths to benefit this culture, to protect this culture, right? Don't use it against this culture. And so we see that there's a prime example, even in a case in which this benefits him individually. We see that the fact that it does not benefit this nation and it hurts this nation means that it's something that he was sad about.
Oh man, you know what? Let's drop some fires in the chat. This is such
some sevens in the chat.
This is such
a great discussion.
Oh man, this is just one of those things where when we really look at it and we just really see it right again.
Yeah,
the character of what it means to be an Israelite man. What do you think this did for the other soldiers around him?
Right.
To see him react like that. Even if I had an issue with a brethren, I don't even care about the issue anymore. Like, no, I know. I love my brethren. Right. I love my brethren, especially when I'm dealing with, again, somebody like King David, right? Who I know what that means to be against brethren and what that means for him, because he has unconditional love for Israel and the God of Israel, right?
Exactly.
So we kind of run out of time, right? And I love this discussion so much, right? We have to come back and do this again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but there's one more verse I really want to point out because it speaks to, again, today. Everything speaks to today, but this one really speaks to today, right? Mm-hmm. Let's turn to Joel chapter 2. Joel chapter 2, and if you're not ready, you can.
I did not get through yet.
We're gonna find it, right? We're gonna find it. I just had it. You know, I gotta go to. All right, we gonna get. All right, there we are. Joel chapter 2. I'm there. All right.
Okay.
Took a little minute, but we there, right?
Couldn't get it. Okay.
All right. So this, and when I read it, you guys definitely gonna know exactly what it is, right? I'm gonna jump straight to verse 28. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old man shall dream dreams. Your young man shall see visions. Man. Again, we know what this means, right? Coming from the God of Israel, right?
Yeah.
But think about the commitment that the responsibility that we owe to each other.
Yeah.
From one generation to the next generation, right?
Yeah.
That the old man will dream dreams and the young man will have visions.
Yeah.
If we're disconnected, if there's not a respect there, if it's not humility there, how can that be possible?
Yeah.
That connection is broken. We see what the world is doing and how lopsided everything is. But when we come together, when we're together as one, we're on one accord.
We have strength.
Oh, man.
Unstoppable.
The old man
Yeah.
will dream dreams and the young man will have visions. You talk about the setup for a righteous nation.
Right.
You talk that right there.
That right there.
Oh my
That
goodness,
right there.
man.
It's true.
It's
Thank you guys for for joining us on this Friday night Bible study.
Oh,
It's
man.
been a great discussion.
I'm so fired up and excited, right? Because again, we got to come do this again, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
from what we read so far, and again, right,
There's
we
a
have
lot more to uncover, of course.
it's so much to uncover, right?
Yeah.
But we know, right? So for closing, right, we know Israelite men are a manifestation of the God of Israel and his laws, his statutes, and his commandments. Mm-hmm. Anything else is something we don't want to be a part of. But we definitely thank you guys again for joining us for this Bible study.
Like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you text it to your buddies. Make sure that you throw it in your group chats and be like, look, click the link. Make sure you donate if you can to keep, videos like this going.
Absolutely. It's, especially to go out and show, right? We have so many things against our young men, right? So this is something, again, if you want to come and learn how to be an Israelite man, come, click the link in the description box. Come join us. We can have further conversations.
I'm trying to run away from all the people I face it, but they just keep coming, so I just keep running, I'm racing. Maybe I should look up to my father and make some changes. I'm racing so the meeting so that we can face it. Instead of running away, I'm a priest of the highest mountains. So when people look to the water, they'll see the fountain of youth. You are the only one that can save me from all of these horrible dudes keeping me away from you. I need to find God in a heavenly place, but I've been looking and I've never seen someone rephrase what they always tell me, because I can understand what people go through when they're lost and they can't find their way. I'm going in a cycle really. I'm trying to reach my heavenly Father. Why can't anyone hear me? Hopefully God can see me right. I'm trying to reach you. I just need to find some light. Light is sometimes really easy to take for granted. So when you don't feel tall and you are really feeling slanted, your light could have flew away like a sparrow, because the light got the path to avoid his wrath and lead the straight and narrow. He is real. I hope that whoever you are, I'll be able to look upon the stars and still see the oohs and ahs that I always felt when I gazed afar, trying to make a wish from a shooting star. In the end, I wanna be doing what's right, that's right, but left keeps putting up a fight. So if you could be there, alright, whatever you ask, I'm here, man, we could be tight. I know this letter isn't formal and I don't wanna have to go put on a suit and tie. Trust me, Father, you help see me through. They try to give me all the lies, you gave me nothing but the truth. So please, oh God, are you really blessing an Israelite to big and not to be? That is the question as I ponder over the stars bright, hoping one day I can find my light. Light is sometimes really easy to take for granted. So when you don't feel tall and you are really feeling slanted, your light could've flew away like a sparrow, because the light got the pad to avoid his wrath and lead the straight and narrow. He is real light. Israelite. He is real light. He is real. He is real. He is real light. Israelite. Israelite. He is real light. Israelite. Israelite. He is real light. 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 He is real.